to see you all here. Thank you very much for making time in your day to come and spend it listening to my talk. So, as you can see, the talk is about Journey into the World of Generative AI with AWS. Just at the very beginning, let's just run through essentially what I hope to get through in this session. A little bit of an introduction, which also includes a little bit more about me, maybe than it might have been with other talks, mainly because there's also quite an element of a career transition. So I've got to sort of had my own journey into AWS quite recently, I guess. So that's perhaps slightly longer than would be normally. However, then we're going to jump right into about what is generative AI and why should we even care. And then a little bit more detail about the difference between machine models, machine learning models, and generative AI models. Then having a good look at Amazon Bedrock and Titan, SageMaker Jumpstart, and some takeaways. So hopefully we'll have time for some questions at the end. So let's dive in. So yeah, this is me. My name's Debbie Griffin. I'm a technology consultant. I work for a company called Credera UK. And a few fun facts about me. I'm a mother of 3. I'm a grandmother of 3. I've been married 3 times. Who knew? So my lucky number's 3. So we'll keep it at that, 3. And I've got here just a little quote, life is a journey, not a destination, by Ralph Waldo Emerson, the father of American literature. And he's often credited with these words, not sure he exactly said those words, made famous by Aerosmith, you might recognise that, in their 1992 hit single, Amazing. And I think it just sums up my journey in life, basically, so far. Relationships, location, career. I have lived in a number of places, mainly with a previous career. But yes, so sums me up, really. Just as I say, a little bit about my career transition, because I was asked just to speak about that. So I was basically 25 years as a maths teacher, so started in 1998 with that, and recently transitioned, as I say, into AWS technology, consultant with Credera, just March this year. I started in 2020, deciding that I wanted to career transition. Teaching wasn't what it used to be. I'm sure you've heard that from lots of people. Then maybe you have teachers in your own lives that might tell you something similar. So I started training in my own time, evenings, weekends, decided to go into AWS cloud architecture because I thought I had a lot of transferable skills which I could use there. I was told by the course that I took up, which was an Optima IT course, that I should make a LinkedIn account. Knew nothing about LinkedIn, being a teacher. My daughter helped me set that up. And then, although I was a bit scared about it, but not too long, I found that a lot of people were in a similar position to me and were also career transitioning and were very interested in posts that I made and video blogs that I made about my transition journey. So that led me to become an AWS community builder and be able to help more people with their own transition journeys. And March 2023, I was, just prior to that, probably more sort of beginning of that year, I was spotted by one of the people that connected with me, Rob, my colleague here at Credera, who said, I think you'd be a really good fit for Credera, and after 4 steadily more difficult interviews, I managed to actually be offered a position at Credera. I'm really glad. They're a great company to work for. I think I would say that, but they are a good consultancy firm. And through that, I've been to the AWS London Summit earlier in the year and was asked to speak here today. So also something just coming up at the end of October, AWS are actually going to send a film crew over, which seems really weird, but 5 people coming over to actually film my career transition story. So they must think that it's something worth documenting. So we'll see how that goes. But enough about me. let's have a little look at this. So show of hands, I hope you are going to get involved today with this. So hands up if you've heard of AI, so just artificial intelligence. How many people in the room have heard of AI? So pretty much everyone has kind of heard of it, yeah? Hands up if you've used AI. Some people don't know that they're using AI, to be fair, but yeah, still quite a lot. Yeah, there are lots of ways we use AI every day and perhaps don't even know. But what about, hands up if you have heard of generative AI? So we've heard of it, yeah? So again, it's a hot topic, isn't it? It's in the news, it's everywhere, isn't it? Generative AI. And we may or may not know whether we've used it or not. So I haven't kind of asked that question because it's quite hard maybe to know whether you've used generative AI or just AI. So we're going to have a little look at the difference there. Before we can do that, let's just have a very quick look at definitions of these different terms, if you like, that relate to artificial intelligence, because they are distinctly different, and yet sometimes we tend to use them in the same breath. So artificial intelligence, yeah, so the theory and development of computer systems able to perform tasks that would normally require human intelligence, so, but they're being done by a computer system. So that's just effectively what artificial intelligence is. Now, machine learning, it's kind of in the name, there's a learning element here, okay? So it's an application of AI that enables systems to learn and to improve from their experience, but they're not explicitly programmed, whereas artificial intelligence at the beginning was that you had to code everything down to the smallest detail to be able to achieve something probably quite small, but without human input. But getting away from that with machine learning is that they were able to learn and improve without explicitly being programmed to do so. Deep learning, you may have heard of this. So that's when you've got machine learning that's based on artificial neural networks. So if you think about that, there's multiple layers of processing. It's a little bit like your brain. I don't think we'll ever, who knows, get to that sort of situation where we've got a computer system that does, sort of have the same setup as your own brain. But if you've ever seen Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where they have deep thought, then, sort of linked with deep learning is the idea that maybe that could come about. And we know that using deep learning, we can extract progressively higher level features from data, okay? So then we get on to our generative AI. So this is a type of artificial intelligence technology, and we know it can produce all these things, different types of content. So it could be text, it could be images, audio, synthetic data. They can write things for you almost virtually from scratch, create music. There's all the issues about, well, where's there a copyright issue on this? And it's moving so fast. We're not sort of keeping up with should we be putting anything in place with this. But yes, it's really taking off. But why is it different to the others? So we're going to have a little look at that in a minute. And this diagram just gives you a little bit of an understanding about how they all embed into each other as we move further and further up into generative AI. Now, my next question is, what is generative AI? So I don't know if you've got a phone, and I don't even know if you'll be able to do that from where you are. But there's a little quiz, and if not, we'll do it together. But if anybody can manage to grab that QR code, no, it's not easy when you're all such a distance. But and it's a little quiz. Okay, it's called a capture quiz, and you're basically my student bots. Okay, so student bots, they're going to, if you've got, as I say, it's Microsoft Forms, so if you happen to have MS, a lot of people have Microsoft Teams and things, so I thought it might be a safe bet that a few people might have that. But yeah, there are some questions on there, and if you can do, it's not many, and see if you could submit your answers. You may have heard of capture. I don't know if anybody knows. You see them a lot. But when we go through the quiz in a second, you'll see what I mean by capture. So let me just go back there. So while we have a little look at these results, I think it's timed as well, if I'm not mistaken. just come out of that second. I hope I'm on the right page for this, which I probably am not. Right, let's have a look at this quiz, see if we've got any answers in. Have we got any answers in? Yeah, we've got some answers in. Okay, so let me first of all show you the form. That would, particularly for those that haven't been able to do that. Okay, so as I say, you might recognise some of these questions. Therefore, so when I talk about capture, now if I manage to switch that off or something, no. Why is that not displaying? Don't know what I've done wrong there, or have I done something wrong? Apologies for that. Don't know. That's good, isn't it? We can't do your own IT. Okay, let me explain what they were then as we go through, because the pictures aren't actually on as well. But captures are what you see very often when you're trying to log on to something and they give you an extra level of security. It's not like when you have multi-factor authentication, so you put your password in and then they want so that's something you know, and then something you have, like your phone, and you have a code that you can put in. It's not quite like that. You're trying to log in, you put your password in, and then comes up either a picture or something, and it's asking you, it says capture on it very often, and it might be that you are having to select certain tiles that maybe have got a bus in them, or else it might ask you a really simple maths question like, what's 3 add 4, etc. And some of them are like where they make the graphics quite difficult for you to recognise. So therefore, it's asking you what the letters are, but they're really difficult to make out. And the idea is that they're trying to test whether you're a human. I mean, the easiest one, I guess, of the capture is that just the one where you essentially tick the box and say, I'm not a robot, effectively. So there was a few questions on those. For whatever reason, it won't let me show them, but not to worry. So those of you that did manage to do that, I will just tell you what the results were so far. So we've got 55 responses, which is excellent. It's a bit disappointing we can't show you the results. I'll see if I can find somebody who can let us do that in a minute. But essentially, we have got 33 people got the question 1 right. Everybody got the second one right. Strangely, only 15 people. This was one where we had tiles and the people had to pick buses, yeah? And I think it's because one of them is quite difficult to see in the background. So 40 people put there were 3 where there were actually 4. So 15 there. So perhaps as humans, we don't always get it right, do we? And again, there was a bit of a split on the 4th and the 5th one. So even though this is supposed to test whether we're human, it's not perfect, is it? But why are they doing it? In particular, we'll come across in a minute why the capture as to why that is important to generative AI. But let us go back to the slideshow, however. Let's see if it will reconnect now with the, Tesla. How strange. It wouldn't let me show a page, but it will let me show the PowerPoint. Bizarre. First of all, because we're saying about what is generative AI. So first of all, we'll come back to that capture thing in a second. So bear that in mind if you had a go at that. It mentions it here. And this is to do with how generative AI models learn. Okay, so, and partly why they're different to traditional machine learning models. But again, we're going to go into that again in a minute. So the first thing that happens is, it's basically a process. It's an iterative process, and it's called build, test, kill, repeat. Kill sounds awful, but and I would like you to think of them in a way as being a child, but not that you're going to kill a child. But if you think about your own children, that's what these models are. They are like our children, and we have to teach them, just like you would teach children. So before we can do that, the developer, really the only way they get involved, they're not doing all this massive coding anymore, but they build something called a builder bot. And the builder bot is basically just a piece of code, but it's capable of writing other code. Okay, so that's basically its function. And the builder bot itself then builds what you were all being, which is student bots. And the student bots are going to take tests, just like you've been taking tests, the capture tests, okay? But being a machine or a piece of code, it doesn't just build, a class of 30. It can build thousands or hundreds of thousands of student bots. So the sort of magnitude of scale here is vast. And it basically gives them this algorithm that captures the basic idea of what you're trying to get an answer to. But what it does is, in each of the student bots, it just puts a very slight variation. And there's no logic to why it does it. It just varies that code or that algorithm very slightly. And so each one has got, not necessarily each individual one, but there's a variety of this code or this algorithm in these student bots. So then they get tested by something called the teacher bot. It's really the test bot. And because they don't teach them anything, they don't tell them how to pass the test, and they see which ones actually pass the test, okay? And those ones they want to keep. So that's what, those are the ones that we're going to keep to train a bit more. But the ones that didn't get it, so it's kind of what we do with children, isn't it? We try and, hopefully we try and teach them a bit, not just test them constantly. But there's some people think that's all we ever do is test them. But so we've grown them, they're part of our lives now, and we're now testing them. And if they get it wrong, we're not going to kill them, but we are going to give them rewards and be, oh, that's brilliant, you got it right. And if not, there's not quite that positive reinforcement, and maybe we help them to get it right next time. But in this sort of cutthroat world of technology, we kill them off. We don't want the ones that didn't pass the test. Okay, so they're gone, and all we do is keep the ones that pass the test, and then we repeat it again. But again, we vary this algorithm again slightly. Okay, and also we reproduce those particular versions of student bots. And this is how the generative AI learning happens. And the thing that's slightly worrying about it is that even the models themselves don't know how they changed the code. So you could never track it back. So even if you end up with this wonderful model that is really, really good at answering the particular problem that you originally had, you can't track backwards as to how did the model get to that answer. So it was because most of it was just random. It was just making that decision to keep certain bots. That's really it, that's all it did, and just randomly change little bits of the code until the results got closer and closer to being reality. And so I was thinking about the capture. I don't know if you've noticed that a lot of them these days are things like buses and fire hydrants and crosswalks. And this is because you're actually providing answers which will be used to train generative AI models that will basically be involved in driverless cars. So cars, which you are going to have without, having to drive them yourself. So they would need to know if something was a crosswalk or a traffic light, or if it was red, or so a lot of the questions you're being asked are not only to get you into whatever website you were trying to get into, but also because that's giving them lots of great data that they can then feed into their models. So this is important. Why should we care then? So we know a little bit more, hopefully, about what generative AI is, and also how it learns, how it gets to where the answers that it has. But other than that, why should we care? Well, it's going to affect all of us, and probably is already affecting all of us. It's got great economic potential, certainly. There are sort of quotes from various agencies that it could add trillions of dollars of value to the global economy. And the impact of it. We know it's impacting all industry sectors. I mean, in particular, the banking industry. We know that, some of these models, they're very good at writing code. We're not necessarily having to write everything from scratch ourselves, and we can ask it to write code for a particular purpose, and lots of other areas, industry sectors. Ways of working, and this is a big worry, isn't it, for some people. In essence, it could go either way. It could be that actually generative AI is very useful in meaning that we can get rid of some of the jobs that we don't want to do, the more labour-intensive ones maybe, and concentrate on things which are more enlightening to us, things that we would love to do if we just didn't have to do all that mundane stuff. But on another level, of course, it could be that your job is something that could be completely taken over by generative AI, and therefore your job may cease to exist. So that's not really where you want to be, unless you can either want to retrain in something that you can do, or why can't I just, therefore, I don't mind if my job ceases to exist, as long as you still pay me, because these models are making so much money, surely I can have that money, I can just enjoy myself the rest of my life. You wouldn't mind that so much, but whether that will happen, we shall see. So that's just a little bit about, as I say, Gen AI and why we should care about it. There is some confusion, therefore, about the traditional machine learning models and what we call FM models. So FM, we didn't exactly define that, but foundation models are what these models are called, which generative AI use. And the reason that they are different to your traditional machine learning models these are the main factors here. So traditionally, you would have to label all your data. So for your traditional models, you'd label it, or each piece of data, imagine how long that takes for a lot of data. And then this would be used, this data, with your machine learning model to train to train a machine learning model, but for a specific task. So you've got your data, you've labelled it up, it's for a specific purpose, and then you might want to have some text generation, or it might be for a chatbot, or it could be to do with music, or whatever. Whereas the foundation model is different. You have got unlabeled data, and not only is it unlabeled data, it is internet scale data. Essentially, we're just feeding these models with the size of the internet in terms of the data that's going into them. And it's not for a specific task. So we'll go into a foundation model, which are pre-trained on all this internet scale data, and they adapt, as we've seen, how they adapt, what they do to actually learn, and they can then actually give answers for lots and lots and lots of different questions. So lots of tasks, not just one. So this really is the difference between what we have been using and now these foundation models, which are what are being used for generative AI. Hopefully, so far, are we all okay on that? I hope. So we're going to now have a little bit more look at how Amazon and AWS come into this, essentially. So Amazon Bedrock is the new thing. It was announced at the summit, London Summit, and some of the other summits in the US, etc., about Amazon Bedrock being the offering of Amazon and AWS for not just machine learning, for foundation models, using foundation models. The reason that it's important and why they have pushed this a lot is because it makes it easy to get into generative AI, in that it is serverless, and it means that you don't have to manage your infrastructure at all. You don't have to worry about scaling, and it's also very simple. So the reason it's simple is because you can choose a foundation model, and you'll see in a moment that that's where Titan comes in. But it's not the only model. There are lots of foundation models which Amazon work with, and once you've chosen which model you like, and that could be from a number of different parameters that it suits your business case or your type of business, once you've chosen that, you literally just have to call it via an API. And that's basically as simple as it gets. We've kind of mentioned a little bit about the top, about how we feed these foundation models with like the entirety of Wikipedia, publicly available literature in lots of different languages, also computer programming languages, so we feed them with all this information, masses of amount of information. Okay, also we can customize these models. So if you've chosen a particular foundation model, but you also want to make it even more specific to your business, then you can use your own business data to customize and fine-tune that model so that it really can answer whatever question you may want that will help your business with its business goals. Amazon Titan, as we said, is linked to this because Amazon Titan is the homegrown foundation model of Amazon. So certainly it's one that, therefore, for that reason, they would be pushing. It's got lots of things which are probably could be of interest. So there's Titan Text. So this is a generative large language model that you might want to use. There's something called Titan embeddings. Now, the embeddings, it's not specific to Titan, but what embeddings are is that essentially the way machine learning works across the board is that they're looking for patterns. Well, they're always spotting patterns. So it's quite hard to spot patterns when you've got a selection of words, and even more difficult when you put those words together in some sort of syntax. But embeddings is a way of reducing, whether it's individual words or whether it's particular sentences or types of meanings within sentences, into essentially numbers, so like a code. And so the pattern now that's being looked for by that model is not something that's quite difficult for them to get their head around. Through various algorithms and different methods, they create these things called embeddings, and it's much easier, as you can imagine, to compare perhaps a 20-digit number and say, yeah, that number's very, very close to this one, or is identical to this one, and therefore we're spotting these patterns. So essentially that's what embeddings are, and Titan, it does use this. And it's also another thing, and this is a big worry of people, because we've seen this, and unfortunately it's always in the media and in the news which it's flagged up as being the, I should say, inappropriate content that sometimes comes out of these models. And Amazon only work with model providers who are what they call responsible model providers. So they have got, so it's not just Titan. Titan it fulfills this brief as well, but the other companies that they work with, the other model providers, they'll only work with them if they're responsible model providers. And what that means is that they vet the data that goes into their models for inappropriate content. And it could be all sorts of things. It could be hate speech, could be something which is discriminatory, but equally they vet at the other end. So the output out of the models, they also check for inappropriate content, so that you shouldn't be being offered anything which comes out of a model that's somehow been biased or skewed in a particular direction to provide inappropriate content. Just a little thing to check at this stage, so just a little straw poll again here. So I just picked up a few headlines here. So as you can see, we've got call to ban killer robots, 100 scientists in a plea amid fear that terrorists will turn them against us. And yet over here, the other side, we've got an artificial intelligence idea could fight terrorism. So it's completely opposite, yeah? And we've mentioned already about, robots stealing your jobs. And on the other side, I must admit, it was very hard for me to find clippings from newspapers with positive things about artificial intelligence. There's plenty of people that write articles, so that was just a clip there from a particular article saying that artificial intelligence can solve global problems like education, poverty, healthcare, hunger. Where do you sit at the moment? I mean, put your hand up. Do you think that the way we're going with artificial intelligence, and particularly generative AI, that we're going down the negative route? How many people think that things are going to be bad, possibly? Yeah, I just think we've got some issues. Not so many, actually, which is strange because the newspapers are convinced of it, aren't they? They're convinced. How many people think, and they're very much like, no, this is really going to be a good thing? How many people think it's really, yes, it's a great thing, artificial intelligence is great, generative AI. More people, which is lovely. I wonder whether it's because we have a certain selection of types of people in terms of of their involvement, excuse me. But that's very heartening to see. because you'd be surprised, you can't find many, many news articles or headlines that will suggest that. Who do you think is going to decide which way around this happens? Whether we all end up with that sort of, Terminator type environment, or actually we all end up sitting on a beach somewhere not having to work at all because AI has just solved everything and we're all just going to be paid money to sit and to just enjoy our lives. I mean,
policy.
Have a little think about which one, sorry?
Government policy.
Government policy will decide, you think? Yeah? Okay. Anybody else? Us. Did you say us?
Elon Musk.
Elon Musk. He'd love to decide, wouldn't he? I'm sure it's probably already decided for us. I'd like to think that it's all of us, basically, because whatever any of us do online can be fed into these models. And you've got to think about it. They're taking all this data from the internet, and what do they see of us? Humanity. What things make the headlines? I mean, these things they're reading, hopefully they're reading that, these AI models are also reading these articles, the good stuff about us. But a lot of what we hear about humanity is how, we're killing the planet, we're no good for this, we're no good for that. And what do we ask these models to do? Generally, it's to make us more money, make my business more money, or help me fight that country because I want to win that war, So it tends to be that we're feeding them with things which are quite negative. So really, hopefully, we can have some impact on which way this should go. I just wanted to break out a little before we then go through, because I did mention I wanted to just speak about also Amazon SageMaker, Jumpstart. But the reason I'm mentioning this is because sometimes there's a little bit of confusion between this and Amazon Bedrock. So we saw that Amazon Bedrock works with not just with Amazon Titan, but the Amazon Titan is an example of a foundation model, and it's the Amazon's choice, the one that they've developed. But then some people wonder, do I use Amazon Bedrock or do I use Amazon SageMaker Jumpstart? Well, how are these two things connected? So essentially, Amazon SageMaker Jumpstart, it provides these open source models to solve a wide types of problems and with machine learning. But the reason it's different, so it sounds like Bedrock at the minute, doesn't it? It's very similar. But the difference is that sometimes companies might say, I can't use Bedrock because it's serverless, it's fully managed, so I haven't got any view of the compute. I can't see the instance that this is being run in. I can't decide what region it's going to be in or what availability zone. I'm not sure what protection there is on it. And my company won't allow that. I have to have that visibility. So Bedrock sounds great because it makes life easier, but we can't do that. Now, this is where SageMaker would come in. It's not as fast, and it's perhaps not quite as economical, because remember, because you're only paying for API calls with Bedrock, that's what makes it, cost effective. Not quite the same with SageMaker. There you have to set up your own instances, your own compute, and you have to manage them, and you have to manage the scaling. You also have to find the right model that will fit for your business use case. But it does mean that you can still get into this generative AI market and use the benefits of that, but that you can still make sure that compliance-wise, whatever your business compliance requirements are, that you can make sure that those are taken care of as well. So that's really the major difference between, as I say, Amazon Bedrock and Amazon SageMaker Jumpstart. I've just put a few pros and cons there, but I think I've pretty much read through those, to be fair, or just gone through those. Something that's interesting for both of them, and again, this is always a thing that worries companies generally, none of the data that goes into either of these, whether it's Bedrock or Jumpstart, is used to train the underlying models or any other models. It's not possible to configure these so that if you want to use some of your own business data, that it can then go and be used to train other models, whether it's other competitors' models or models that you've got no idea where it's going. You are still entirely control of your own data, and the access to it is no different to anything else with AWS where you've set up your access and identity access management. So it's whoever you want to have access to it. It can't be fed into models, and that's the same for both of these. So just some takeaways. So generative AI, yeah, it's got many interesting use cases and challenges, as we've seen. It's not a solution to all technology problems, and that's the important thing is you need to start with your business case. Don't just think, well, generative AI, it's the big hot topic, it seems everybody's doing it, so maybe our business should do it, or we're going to get left behind. Yeah, it's not the answer to everything. And so therefore you do need to start at your business use case and actually, can that be of benefit to it? Will that help our business to achieve our business goals? That's what really matters. It is a difficult and new and growing and all the time changing environment, generative AI. I know it's a shameless plug here, but at Credera we've got broad experience of implementing AI solutions for our clients, and we'd be more than happy to help. So, by all means, get in touch with us if you wish regarding the AI landscape. I do have a feedback form. I'm just going to leave that up there, but it's literally just for me. It's not related to information specifically for Credera, because this is my first conference presentation, and I'd very much like to know which bits you enjoyed. It's not an onerous form, but and which bits I could perhaps improve on. If anybody's interested in the slide deck, also there's a little comment bit on one of the questions where you could leave your email address. I'm more than happy to share the information with you. Are there any questions? We've got a few minutes. We're all done to silence. No?
Generally available.
It's not actually at the moment, you're quite right. I did miss that out, and you already know this, don't you? Yeah, so it's in beta testing, I believe, at the moment. Is it, sorry?
It went GA today.
Did it? I should have known that. I did not know that. Right. Oh, it's perfect talk. GA today. Is that in specific regions, do we know? Oregon and Virginia. It always starts there, doesn't it? But yes, so it depends what region you want there. There we are, that's a good answer to that one. GA today, but only for certain. But of course it will roll out and very quickly, won't it? So, so it should be available widely soon. Any other questions? We're all pretty okay. Anyway, it's been lovely talking to you all, and hopefully I'll get the opportunity to do so again.